how does that relate to this sign signification? Well, what you recognize is, insofar as we're talking about the separation between the signal and the signification, right? What is directing me towards meaning, right? In a traditional sense, it's different, right? It's different than the way it is for Lacan. Lacan is looking at the signifier. The signifier, the sound pattern, to be technical, the signifier, the sound pattern, or the signal, those three as synonymous terms, as being sort of the locus of meaning, right? This is the locus of meaning. And it's not even the individual signifier. It's the relationship, as we saw, between signifiers. That is our locus of meaning, right? Our locus of meaning for Lacan is situated within the connection between signifiers, as is evident in the sentence, the power of the cloth transcends human existence. Each signifier by itself, effectively meaningless. The meaning of that is found in the connection between the two, right? So what we recognize is that what's being signified, the signification, S-I-G-N-I-F-I-C, the signification, the importance, the meaning of which is only understood after we've established this network. In a contemporary sense, it's the same. We cannot have a sense, because most, I'd say 99% of, actually all philosophers, I don't think there are any philosophers, almost all philosophers and most sort of physiologists don't say that the function of the heart is to sustain life, right? The heart just happens to beat, and the fact that it beats sustains life. The sort of teleological argument that our eyeballs are to see and our heart is to beat means that there's some end state that's sort of given, which presupposes a whole lot. I'm not going to get into that discussion right now. What we end up seeing rather is that it's more of a network, right? It's the network, the interrelation between all of these various functions, right, that create meaning. So that meaning is itself isn't apparent in the fact that my eyes are used to see, my heart is used to beat, my brain secrete particular serotonin and dopamine levels, and that controls my excitement and my emotions. All of that by itself is completely meaningless. It is only when all of those functions, as signifiers, are understood as a network of connectivity that we understand the meaning of the human body, right? Which is, I mean, at least in an evolutionary sense, it's the survival of the fittest, right? It's the preservation of the species. It's the drive that we have. It's all of that. Just talking about sort of the neural connectivity or the beating of my heart or the circuitry of my veins in and of itself is utterly meaningless. We can't arrive at the signification without an understanding of sort of this nexus of interconnected meaning, right? So that's really what's at stake here. And I don't see how you can argue Lacan. I think he's absolutely right? And which is not to say that Saussure is wrong, right? But looking at the individual constituent parts of the signifier and elevating it to the status of that which is a meaning-giving activity is a little presumptive. What Lacan is saying is that we only get to this meaning-giving activity, the signification, through an understanding of the sort of interconnectivity of each respective signifier and its connection to the other. That's how we arrive at meaning. And sort of an analogous example, just so that you have a visual understanding, is that we can't really have an understanding of what it means to be a human being, at least in evolutionary biological terms, if we're only looking at one subset of human sort of physiology. It's the network of all of the dynamic systems of the human being that give us the ability to make sense of our world, right? So I apologize if that's a bit cryptic, but that's as clear as it gets, right? This is what Lacan says specifically. He says the image's value as a signifier has nothing to do with its signification, and he gives a marvelous example. So he talks about hieroglyphics, and I'm not going to draw this picture because I'm not that talented, but in hieroglyphics you have the image of the aleph, right? The aleph, which became the letter A. You have the image of the aleph and the now defunct vowel. There is no vowel, but at the time there was vowel. The aleph is represented by a vulture, and vowel is represented by a little chick, right? The obvious immediate, if you don't understand hieroglyphics, the immediate association that you would think is that aleph and vowel as images are indicative of the concept bird, right? Aviaries, right? Aves. So you would say, oh, well, I see that aleph and vowel, this would be presumptive and it would be wrong. And Lacan addresses this, right? That aleph and vowel, as represented within hieroglyphics, is an instantiation and points to the signification of bird. That's categorically false, right? What does he say? Well, let's look first. Let's look first at what was said before, so that we understand. In Saussure, we saw that we had mutton. We had mutton as a signifier in French, and we had sheep as a signifier in English. And what we said is that they shared meaning. Mutton and sheep shared meaning in French and English because they both were signified by the mammal that is from ovis, right? It's like a mammal from ovis. I forget how it's defined, right? So mutton means mammal from ovis, sheep means mammal from ovis. The difference, however, between mutton and sheep is that, unlike English, mutton also, the same signifier in French, also means the meat that is eaten from mammal ovis. Where in English, we have a separate word for that, right? We have a separate signifier, and that is mutton. So in French, we have shared meaning, but the value is different. And I'm not going to beat that horse again because I've already discussed that. So now if we return to what Lacan is saying with respect to the hieroglyphic representation of aleph and vowel, the image below of hieroglyphic aviaries, and this is his term, hieroglyphic aviaries is his phrase, the images below of the hieroglyphic aviaries as represented here, featured by the image below, the left is the vulture, the right is the chick. They have nothing to do with the concept bird, right? What he says is that the image's value as signifier has nothing to do with its signification, and he demonstrates this. Why? Because in the picture, you would be mistaken. It looks as though this picture is properly represented, right? That we have the image as being a representative of this notion bird, this concept bird. But this is false, right? This is false. Why? Because, and I didn't put it in the notes, but I just remembered from the reading, I think it actually, aleph and vowel within hieroglyphics stood for an instantiation of the verb to be, so that it really sort of functioned within the structure of language itself. It has absolutely nothing to do with birds. Why is that of any importance? Because he's showing you an example in the real world where you can have a signifier that has nothing to do with the signification of what you think it would have to do. And not only a signifier, but a class of signifiers. The signifier vowel, the signifier aleph, both birds, neither of which point to the signification bird. Why is that of any importance? Because it shows that his account, which I haven't given you yet, of the oneric rebus is going to be validated by that example, right? There is a sense in which you can have a signifier that does not point to its obvious signification. So that in the dream state, the signifier of tree does not point to, like vowel and aleph, do not point to birds because they are birds. The image of a tree in a dream state does not point to a tree in real life.